In this video, we're going to learn how to create a movie browsing app. The first lesson objective will introduce Swift optionals. And then we're going to build a basic table view. So this is an example of what we're going to be building towards. This is actually a student project. You can see we can browse through a table view or list of movies here. We can also view these in what's called a collection view format. We have tabs on the bottom here where we can switch between top rated and popular. And eventually we'll be able to click on a movie and see a more detailed view like you see here. Now this may look complex, but the key to building something like this is to break it down into small bite-sized milestones. Let's get started by creating a new Xcode project. In this class, we're always going to choose single view application. We're also going to uncheck include unit tests and include UI tests for now. Make sure create Git repository on my Mac is selected. I'm going to go over here and click on main storyboard, and then up here in the right hand corner, I'm going to click on the file inspector. And down here where it says use auto layout and use size classes, I'm going to uncheck that. Now I'm going to get this message here and I'm going to say yes, disable size classes. The next thing I'm going to do is click on this view controller file that it gives you automatically. I'm going to delete this and create my own custom view controller class. I'll do that by clicking on this movie viewer folder and selecting File, New File, making sure we're in iOS, Cocoa Touch, and clicking Next. We'll call this the Movies View Controller because this is where we're going to display our list of movies. Now, we'll need to link our Movies View Controller Swift file with our view controller in the storyboard. So I'll click on Storyboard, click on the view controller, this yellow dot here, and over here on the right, I'm going to click on this thing that we affectionately call the driver's license. Now, over here with class, instead of view controller, I'm going to type in Movies View Controller. Now, when I click on these little rings here to show the code associated with this view controller, it should show me the Movies View Controller file that we created. The next thing I'm going to do is add a table view to our view controller. Over here in the object library, I'm going to search for UI table view. As a note, at no point will we ever use the table view controller. We will always use the table view. And I'll drag that onto my view controller here and expand it so it fills my entire screen. Let's run our app to see what a blank table view looks like. Before I do that, I'm going to change this simulator size to the 5S because that's what size we have here. And I'll click this play button to build and run. All right, this is what a blank table view looks like. We're on the right track, but I think our table view is missing some cells. Back in Xcode, I'm going to grab a table view cell from the object library and drop it into my table view. This is what's called a prototype cell, and we'll use it to represent many, many cells. In order to reference the cell, we're going to go over here and give it a reuse identifier. I'm going to call it movie cell. We're going to need to communicate with our table view, so let's create an outlet from the table view and storyboard to our code. We can do that by holding Control and dragging from the table view to create an outlet. I'll call this table view. Now, our table is going to need some sort of data, and in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and add a couple protocols to the top of our class. The first one is the UI table view data source. The second one is the UI table view delegate. After adding those protocols, you can see we have an error telling us that our view controller doesn't conform to these protocols. That's because the UI table view data source requires two specific methods. To see those methods, hit Command and click on UI table view data source. Okay, here you can see the two required methods. The first one is number of rows in section. This tells the table view how many cells that it has. The second one is cell for row at index path. And that's how we're going to be able to communicate and set the contents of each individual cell. Let's copy and paste each method into our Movies View Controller. Make sure to add curly braces, open and closed, at the end. Now let's go back and get the second method. You can use these arrows up here to navigate to files you were just in. And I'll paste the second method right here and add the open and closed curly braces. I'm going to take a moment to go into my Xcode preferences and click on fonts and colors and set the font and color to presentation mode. This will make the font bigger and easier to see. Now the reason these methods have errors is because they're each expecting a return. So for now, let's say return 20. This means our table view will have 20 rows. In the cell for row at index path, we'll set up the cell. We'll say let cell equals table view dot DQ reusable cell with identifier. Remember when we set the identifier to movie cell? Well, we're going to use that now. So our identifier is movie cell. And for index path, we'll just write index path. The index path tells us where the cell is in the table view. To get a better idea of what it really means, let's print the value of the index path.row into the cell's built-in text label. We can do that like cell.textlabel.text to access its text property equals, and we'll say row and plug in the index path.row. We'll also print that same value to the console. And finally, we'll return cell. Let's see what our error is. And we'll say, yes, fix it. Okay, let's run that and see what it looks like. Uh-oh, it looks like we're looking at a blank table view. So what happened? Well, we forgot one step. We've set the UI table view data source and delegate protocols, but we still need to initialize our cells as the movie's view controller to be the data source and delegate. We'll do that here in the view did load. We'll say table view dot data source equals self, and table view dot delegate equals self. Let's run the app and see what we got. So you can see the index path.row corresponds to the actual row of the table view cell. Let's take a look at the console output for a moment. You can see that the console is only printing the cells that are visible on the screen. Now this concept is incredibly important and powerful because imagine if we had thousands of cells. We don't want to have to deal with those all at the same time. By using reusable cells, the app only has to deal with the cells that are on the screen at any given time. When a cell scrolls off the screen, it's recycled and the data from a new cell is put inside it. At this point, we've set up our table view. In the next video, we'll make a network call and put in some real data.